All right, welcome everybody to the Services Ops Podcast, the best podcast that digs into people, process, and technology in the services operations space. With me today, as always, our great co-host, as well as CEO, co-founder of Provis, Mahesh Baxi, and my name is Chris Souza, head of marketing at Provis. And Mahesh, I'm really excited about this topic, not because nobody's talking about it, but because it's a very important topic of the day. And this is AI in services, right? In services business. Um, and this is a super important topic. And you don't just have to take our word for it. You can look at any study, Forbes, McKinsey, Bain, TSI. It doesn't matter where you look, where you point. All the data is saying AI is here and is going to become more and more prolific in a very short period of time, especially when we think about it, enterprise level short periods of time. We're talking 1 year, 2 years away from being at really important capabilities. So everybody's talking about it.
Definitely. This is a topic that everyone is talking about. It. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really, really important. So we're excited to get into it and apply it to what it means for services ops, right? We'll apply what it means for our audience. So before we get too deep into the people, process, and technology, let's first set an expectation about what you should be getting from AI, what you should be thinking about, what should it be delivering for you in your business. And I think you've got a really cool perspective on this.
Yeah. So as you said, right, I think AI is everywhere. It's here, it's real, and everyone is talking about it. And I think, Chris, what I find more interesting is more and more enterprises are willing to invest in the products that either has the AI offerings today or has something in the short near-term future, right?
Mhm. Yep.
In fact, we have run into a couple of situations with customers where they clearly mention that we are glad that Provus has the AI offering because without that we would not be able to process or proceed with the sales motion because the internal guidance is that hey, anything when it comes to technology that we do, it has to have the AI roadmap, and that's the reality. That's going to be more and more prominent across the board. And that's for a reason, right? This is not like a buzzword that everyone wants to say that, they have. This is not one of those things like, oh, well, I'm going to flash my AI card and everything will be fine. It's none of that stuff. This is real because over the years, if you were to talk about like 3 decades, first decade was all about hey, let's automate all of our back-end fulfillment processes. That's how the ERP came about. Then the second decade was, okay, now that we have done that and it's maturing, let's talk about all of the front-end systems and how those systems come about. And now this decade is all about, hey, there's a lot that's happening between your front end and back end, which is the middle office, and let's automate all of that. But what's next? Hey, now customers, enterprises have automated their front-end systems, their back-end systems, their middle office, which is what they're doing. What's next? Because the next is not your standard reporting and dashboarding is not enough for you to get to the next level. You are sitting on a large data set. In most cases, they are siloed. In most cases, they are not integrated in any meaningful way for you to do something about it. But this is where now the next level of competition, when you think of a customer, is how are you going to be agile? How are you going to be nimble? How are you going to provide, in our case, the services quotes, which is a very complex affair in the split seconds, right? And this is where now the next wave or this decade, as I would call it, is all about AI and it's real.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really interesting point about timing. Like you talked about decades, right? 30 years ago, back office, 20 years ago, front office. Like we're at this point now, and that's a long time to get to where we are now. And I don't think people's expectations for AI should be this is the decade or the decade. We're talking years, right? Couple years, right? So this is going to move much faster than massive changes we've seen in the enterprise landscape in the past. So we need to like reframe our brains. And if you're not already on it, get on it, right? Get on it right away.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Chris. And to extend to that, right? When we think of the front office systems, back office systems, fulfillment systems, some of those which are matured and many of the customers have automated those systems, they could make some sort of use of that data, right? When we talk about AI in our world, or the way I would like to describe that is what we call the D square P square kind of methodology.
Mhm.
What is D square P square? The first D square, or the two D's in that D square P square, is for diagnostic and descriptive, right? And the P squares are predictive and prescriptive, right? Now, when you think of this front office systems, back office system, the diagnostic and descriptive, which is basically, diagnostic is telling you kind of where you are in terms of your deal, in terms of your opportunity, in terms of your ERP. If you are looking at the data, you have ability to kind of figure out through the standard reports, dashboards, some sort of analytics, and say, okay, where are you in the overall scheme of things? That where are you could be, you know, uh, uh, I'm here in North Americas and my deal stands, comparatively speaking here, right? That kind of thing, like where you are in your context. The next one is, why are you here, right? Kind of, if you then look at the deal or your opportunity, why are you here shows all of the parameters that got you there, right? Again, those two to some extent customers have been able to figure out, but that is still not telling you exactly what needs to be done. That is just telling you, where are you, why are you here. The next things and next wave on back of AI technologies is going to be about predictive and prescriptive. Now, we could argue that, like Sales Cloud or any opportunity management somehow tells you, oh, well, you have a 50% chance to win this deal. Yes, there is a data, there's an algorithm that's working, but how do you take it to the next level on back of AI technologies, which is where the predictiveness comes in. But the nirvana of this, where ultimately D square P square will lead to is prescriptive. And especially in the services quoting world where we are at Provus, prescriptive is critical because it's not about one kind of price waterfall. It's not about, two or three different levers that you kind of change and you get where you want to be. It's a very complicated affair. And so to get to the prescriptive, which is humanly impossible, you have to look at levers like, what is your scope? What are the resources? What is the resource mix? What are the resource locations? What is the resource ramp up? How best can I negotiate? And what have I done in the past from a sold data perspective, and how have I executed against that? Now, if I'm a salesperson trying to sell a complicated, services deal, and somebody comes and asks, hey, can you optimize margin by 2%? I'm like, okay, where do I start, right?
Yeah.
Because I have no data in terms of, hey, to optimize margins, like, what do I do? Like, increase my rate, change my resources randomly and make from San Francisco to Austin or Austin to India? What do I do, right? There is absolutely humanly impossible to do what is needed in today's world for you to be competitive, which is, how do I maximize my revenue so that I'm sure that I'm not left any money on the table that I should have sold? And how do I optimize my revenue? This is where the prescriptiveness comes in. This is where the data, the AI technologies are able to look at everything that you have done in terms of your sold and how you have executed, bring that in a meaningful form and tell you that, hey, here is a recommendation, here is what you should do to optimize that margin by 2%. That is the power of AI technologies. That is the power of automating the middle office, what I like to call it, which is, the services quoting for your
Mhm.
services business. That's going to enable all of this magic to happen, which is the next wave of how you compete in today's world.
Yeah. And I think what you just hit on some really, really big important things that I want to call out for the audience. And first is this D squared P squared, right? These four areas for you to evaluate. Now let's talk about technology, for you to evaluate technology vendors or internal technology that which you want to use for AI within your own services operations, right? So when you're talking to somebody, if you're evaluating someone and you look at this feature set that they may have and they're delivering, if you see it's over indexing in one place and not kind of completing the picture, stop for a moment and pause, right? And make sure you have a well-rounded, thought up evaluation criteria for what you're looking at. Because the last thing you want to do is be 2 years down the road and totally miss the gap when it comes to being able to deliver on these prescriptive nirvana, right? So I think it's really, really important from the technology side, uh, technology evaluation side of it to think about. And then, I also want to talk a little bit about uh, this idea of where AI fits in your organization, right? Because there's surface level applications, which are useful. And I think we're all looking at them today and how we can utilize them, right? How can we either use AI to help us sell better today, deliver better today, or just operate a little bit better, right? So Salesforce Copilot's out there, right? And that's helping people interact with their Salesforce instance in a more natural way. And that helps you sell a little bit better. Okay, that's great. Wonderful. We love that. Um, you think about different just productivity apps. Google's got all kinds of different little bits of AI built into productivity, meeting schedulers, whatever it's going to be. How can you use a chat GPT or something else within your delivery function to up level the skill and productivity of your resources? Right now, this is a big people process technology exercise and it's training and it's something we should be thinking about for sure. Um, and then operationally expense management system, something like that, right? Like these things are there today and you should be evaluating them, uh, but those are only get you so far. And what you just talked about was getting to the meat of the issue.
Yeah.
What are you doing to maximize revenue, to optimize your margins? How is AI going to help you do that?
Yeah.
And I think that's a longer journey. And there's some big challenges that are in the way of getting to that point.
Yeah.
And I'll say this and I'll let you run. Uh, data,
Yeah.
data with integrity. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. I think you absolutely rightly said people, process, and technology. There are there are products or applications out there which which is probably purely technology based, and you can still kind of live away or do whatever magical things with just technology. We are talking about large enterprises here
Mhm.
and an extremely siloed way of how enterprises operate today. When we talk about market, let's talk about lead to cash motion and what happens in that lead to cash motion in enterprises. The lead generation is an isolated activity governed by marketing. The lead ultimately ends up in the opportunity. The opportunity management is done in an isolation by the sales team.
Mhm.
That translates into some sort of this whole quoting process that happens on Excel spreadsheet 95% of the time, as we have seen with our customers. Then, another isolation, another island of activities is this backend fulfillment systems like a PSA, where somebody is manually, adding all of these things and allocating resources and availability and timesheets and all that stuff. Then the other isolation happens, like the invoicing and billing team says, okay, yeah, I mean, I'm going to operate on my own and I just need this piece of data and I'll do what I do, right? Now, when we talk about lead to cash, yeah, somehow the process is happening and all of that stuff. But if I was someone who had to look at lead to cash as a process and say, what are my opportunities to do better from here, right? That is where the data comes in. That is where the enterprise architecture, and I don't mean the technical architecture, I mean how enterprises are structured today, right?
Mhm.
For a leader to really figure out, how do I make use of this isolations or islands of data and apply the latest and greatest technologies on top of that. That itself is a massive affair. I'll give you an example. I used to be an executive sponsor for a very large technology company with a three-letter word. And there was a massive effort in a group called I forget the name of the group, but they all that group was doing is creating these data lakes. And those
Mm,
data lakes are collecting data from hundreds of systems and trying to create this data lakes so that they can start connecting the dots of how the business is really progressing, what are the gaps, what can they do better, and stuff like that. Now in the legacy systems, there is a way that legacy systems collect the data. There are modern systems like Provis, where we collect the data in a very different and structured manner, where technologies can start working off of that. But data is the foundation for what AI technologies can and cannot do. You will not believe, Chris, but all of our customers and prospects that we talk to, everyone is absolutely excited about our use cases of AI and what it means for them and how it will help them in that journey. And everyone wants to start using the AI technologies like tomorrow.
hmm
The fundamental question is AI is not magic, it works on the data. And then the question is, hey, is it possible for you to give me last 6 months of data in an injectable form into our AI algorithm? And the answer 100% of the time is no. And you know why? Because they are working, the entire services coding is working off of Excel spreadsheets. And Excel spreadsheets are a great way to get something started. But when it comes to organizing the data in a meaningful way,
hmm
extracting the data in something that can be injected into AI algorithms, just not happening, right? And so as excited as these leaders are and as understanding they are in terms of how AI can help them maximize revenue, optimize margins, increase the cycle time, um, right now most of the leaders are struggling to make or struggling with getting the benefits, but at the same time they all are understanding that the foundation of getting to that benefit is acquiring and organizing the data through automating the services coding process. And that's the only way, or one of the ways, that most of the customers are going to get into the right kind of data and the data integrity required for AI technologies to accurately start working off of that.
Yeah, yeah, and bringing it full circle for our audience, data with integrity is literally people, process, and technology, right? So if you like Mahesh was talking about, there are these data lakes and siloed data, and okay, there's a technology problem there, right? And then now you also start thinking about, okay, say that is all figured out and you got a beautiful, beautiful data lake and it's got everything you ever needed and it's all your data, lead to cache, all is perfectly there. Do you feel good about how the data goes from a conversation between a customer and a client, whatever it's going to be, to that place? How are you collecting it? That's the process and the people that you have to deal with to really add integrity to that data. So evaluate each phase that data goes through. If you feel like the integrity is there, now you've got your foundation for AI applications. Now you've got your foundation for solid AI capabilities in the future. Now you've got your foundation to say, let's make decisions. And this is something you talk about all the time. Let's allow AI to help prescribe actions we should take that we can trust. Because if you
Yeah,
can't trust your data, the AI is going to go off your data. If you
yeah,
can't trust that, then all of a sudden you're getting these prescriptions from AI, just like you talk about with Tesla and autopilot, or I think it's autopilot.
yeah,
Uh, Nobody ever bought a Tesla, jumped in the front seat, and took a nap, right? Nobody did that because there's a level of trust that has to happen. So you got to trust your data, feel good about it. And then all of a sudden, when these rapid fire, amazing prescriptive recommendations start coming through, you're ready for it.
yeah.
It's really, really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And to extend to that that thought, Chris, the nirvana, as I talked about earlier, the nirvana of AI in a complicated process like services quoting is really going to be, hey, I'm operating at a 55% margin. Um, that's not enough. I need to get to 58%. Um, Now, someone who has been with the organization for 5, 10, 15 years might know, tricks and tips to get it done. But someone who has just come in, I'm like, okay, where do I even start, right? I don't have access to a lot of the systems and a lot of the data. I don't know the cost behind my resources and all that stuff. I don't know how we have done in the past.
Mm.
You know, so you have access to absolutely virtually no information because you can't open, 55 different versions of Excel spreadsheets, is how the date, the previous deals were sold. And even if you open it, you can't make a head or tail of those spreadsheets. So you are at a no starting point. And in most situations, what you end up doing, which is the normal human behavior. I want to make the deal happen. I'm going to take shortcuts. I'm going to either do some discounting, some resource changes, and all that. System has no way to know what you just did. What kind of delivery risk did you just create for the organization, right? And so people are making decisions blindly. But imagine the nirvana of AI is now like the Tesla example. I'm not in a fully autopilot mode, but system is now saying that, okay, I can put it on cruise. The equivalent of cruise is system is telling you a recommended scenario saying that, okay, you want to get to 58% margin with all of these boundaries and parameters and what we have sold in the past and how you have executed in the past. Here is a way, right? And now you still, as a human, you are still making the decisions because you know the customer, you know the business, you know your parameters and stuff like that. But at least now you have a starting point saying that here is how I can do it.
Yeah, you just reminded me of a study done a long time ago. And I don't remember the name of it or even what the book I read it in, but the concept was medical doctors were faced with a fictitious scenario. Here's what's going on. Here are two different potential treatment plans. Which one do you want to go with? One was invasive and one was a little softer, right? The majority of those doctors were faced with two options, chose the softer approach. Then they introduced a third option, and all of a sudden it switched to the quicker, more invasive diagnosis, like action to take. And what that does, like you just said, imagine opening up 55 Excel sheets. All of a sudden, human nature says, where's my shortcut? Right? We don't have the scale and the speed that AI is going to give to us and the impartiality, right? If we're going for 55% margins, you're going to get an impartial answer that is the most beneficial outcome for the business and the goal you're seeking. And we just can't do that no matter how bad we want to, no matter how smart we are. It's just not, we're just not going to get there without help from, like you say, system, without AI helping us out. Okay. So, one last question, and then we're going to wrap this up. I want to get your perspective for the audience once again, evaluating AI technology. The last 3 years has been of companies that have been born essentially and addressing AI challenges and solutions are a little different than ones before. So, what is your perspective on how important is a company's architecture, the architecture of their solutions when it comes to actually delivering AI capabilities?
Extremely critical. I think that's the foundation of how and what they can achieve with AI technologies, right? And when we talk about architecture, it's about the systems, the automation, how they're collecting data, what kind of data, which how structured are they, how connected are they? Because if you can't track lead all the way to the project in your backend systems, then you have data, but it's all disconnected. You cannot make head or tail of this lead ended up in this opportunity ended up in this code ended up in this project ended up in this invoices and billing. If all of that connectedness does not happen, then you have data, but you don't have connectedness to really make use of everything in a true sense, right? So data and how you are architected from end to end, in our case, lead to cash process for your services is extremely key, right? To get to to the nirvana, if you will.
Yeah.
Now, what I would say is like, if you are a leader listening to this podcast, if you are either a services leader, a sales leader, ops leader, you are faced with these challenges, which is constantly, how do you grow as your organization? Well, of course, you grow by, getting more revenue. Also, you grow by optimizing your margins, making your operations more efficient. And to make all of that happen, you're making hundreds of decisions every day. how are you making those decisions? Are you making those decisions based on the gut feel? Do you actually have actionable insights? Do you have something that your systems are recommending, your data from the past? Is there any learning at all, or are you still operating based on the tribal knowledge, based on your gut feel, right? And that's the question that all the leaders should be asking themselves. And the second one, I'm going to be bold here, Chris, and I'll say every leader should demand AI technologies in their core processes. Because
Mhm.
when they start demanding AI technologies in their core processes and decision making, the rest of the stuff, because then they will realize, oh yeah, I think this is a great use case. I can maximize my revenue by 5% if I had this technology. Oh, but I can't get to that 5% because now the underneath architecture, or I don't have the data. Oh, why do I not have the data? Oh, well, there are certain processes like services coding that you haven't even automated. So, as Jensen, NVIDIA CEO says, dream big, right?
Yeah,
So only if you are going to dream big, you are going to achieve something. So dream big in the sense that go for the moon in terms of the use cases that's going to benefit and set you apart from your competition in your business. And then drill down from there and say, okay, how do I get to that? And what is it that I do have and I don't have? And just attack those problems aggressively, which will get you the results that you are looking for.
I love that. I love that. Use this as a forcing function to identify where all the gaps in your current business is already.
Yeah.
Absolutely great. Okay. Hey, this has been another really, really good episode. Just want to reiterate some takeaways for our audience. Contextualize what you want out of AI. D2P2, descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive. Really think about when you're evaluating technology and what your use cases you're trying to solve for, where they fit within that. The road to AI starts with data integrity. First and foremost, we all want to get to Tesla autopilot. We all want to take naps on the freeway. You cannot get there until you have your data in the right place. And it is vast and it is organized and it has integrity across every level from acquisition all the way through the delivery of it. And then Mahesh, I love the way you wrapped it up. Be bold. That's what we're
Yeah.
here for, right? We're here to be bold, try big things. AI is going to proliferate everything in a very short period of time. If you don't have a plan, call somebody, come up with a plan, listen to what their plan is, go move quick because AI is going to move really, really quick. And that's it. So, Mahesh, any last parting words?
No, that's it. Be bold and be courageous leader. That I'm sure most of the leaders are. But absolutely, be courageous, be demanding, and go for the moon.
Love it. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this episode of the Services Ops Podcast. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, follow us on social, and go out and enjoy being a services operations leader.